This is the first part of a two-part series called Perfect Presentations that I developed based on a couple things. Mainly, it was based on a short little article I found last year on some evidence-based guidelines for PowerPoint slides, which I didn't think existed. And didn't until July 2011, I guess. So, I'm going to hand out our workbooks here in just a second, but I just kind of want to go through a quick overview about what we're going to be doing, and then we'll just jump right into it. So you guys have met before and now again, so glad you could touch base again. Mainly what I'm going to do is give you a quick overview, and basically the overview will be about what we're going to be doing. The gray slide you'll see pop up occasionally, and it's like a little thing I've learned. You use a white or a black or a gray slide, and what it does automatically is it draws your attention to me. So it's kind of a little trick. You can actually push B or W as well in the middle of the slide presentation. So I put in a gray slide just manually. That's how I do it. So it's kind of a nice little trick, you know, because people are so used to making a slideshow, and they just, like you, Eureka, you say 50-something slides in an hour. And just one or two of these in the middle would have broken it up. Let's take a break for 5 minutes, or let's 2-minute break, or you just, they're so focused in on the slides that it gets you automatically to go back to the person. So that's kind of a little trick I learned recently. What I'm going to do is give you a quick overview, and then we'll go from there. So basically, I'm going to go over my little opening, which I'll talk about, and then I'll go over intros, which the two of you will do together. I'll hand you something here in a minute. Then we'll go into the slide guidelines themselves, and we'll meet Joe. And I'll talk about Joe. Then I'll give you an introduction to the actual slide makeovers that we're going to be doing today, and then at the end we'll talk about some feedback I'll get from you at the end. So that really it's a teaser about the slide makeovers at the end. Hopefully you can come back next week and do more of an in-depth review of actually making the slides over that you have that you want to work on. So I will hand out these workbooks to you all, and these are yours. You can write in them. I have a stapler if you want at the end, but just for now, just kept them loose. There you go. So if you want to feel free, those are yours. You can take notes in them. In fact, there's questions throughout, and I'll pause and have you actually fill out things as we go. So I'll just give you 30 seconds or so, or 50, 60 seconds, whatever long it takes. You can scan through it right now, kind of look through typical contents, and just get a feel for what it's like. And then I'll just have you jump to page 5, and you'll see a couple questions there. And these are really, again, these are for you. Just take a second. Do you both have a pen, or do you need a pen? Okay, or pencil. And just there's 2 little questions just to kind of get you started. And if you take a second, it doesn't have to be anything long, just a couple words, first reaction kind of thing. So the first question is, what did you become aware of about presentations after you signed up? Just in the last couple weeks that you may not have noticed before, or may not have thought about as much. And then just one little quick question: how did you feel about wearing a name tag when you walked in?
Good. I don't spell my name.
I checked your email to make sure I got it right. what are some things that you noticed in the last couple weeks since you've signed up?
That my presentation slides have too many things on it, especially the first one, the first slide.
Too many things on it?
Too many things on it.
Okay. So, why do you think you do that?
I think it's just, because the first slide is the scariest. Once I get past the first slide, I'm in mode and I keep going.
Oh, okay. What about you, Beth? Anything you noticed?
I just noticed that a lot of people have a lot of text and don't have a lot of graphic representations, and that sometimes, I'm a visual person, so having graphic representations are better for me, and so I wonder if there's a balance between those who like to read and learn versus those who like to see something graphically and learn, and whether if you're predisposed to one learning style yourself, is that how your presentations are going to be? And if you're assembling a presentation, should you try to balance that for the people in the audience?
Right, okay. We'll get a little bit into that more, well, yeah, we can talk about it offline more than today than I really plan on, but yeah, we can get into that a little bit. Especially at the end when we talk more about when to use graphics and when not to. So, good. And just any funny things you noticed or little things you noticed with the name tag? And no big deal, or is it nice? You said it was nice to have your name spelled right?
Yes, because if there are more people, they always forget my name, and I have to spell it out, Yuriko. My last name, I have to spell it out. Forever, so I like this.
I like it when you have 20 people, especially you're just meeting all these new people. There's no way you can remember more than a couple names, but now you have no excuse.
Yeah, and I don't remember names until I see it written.
Oh,
And so once I've seen it, like I've seen Yuriko's name on many different forums, social media, but, so I know our name, but if I had only shaken hands and she told me what her name was, I would have remembered that.
good, okay. All right, throughout the workbook, just to kind of change things up a little, I also put in little tips. Again, this is designed for a big group, but if you were in a big group and you were exchanging business cards, one of my little tips I do for networking purposes, and again, to remember names, you might get a business card from each other and then, write a little note in the back. Hey, I met Yuriko on 6/13 at 3060 Torgerson, and if you're at a conference, for example, you meet 50 or 100 people in 2 days. It's really nice to have those notes for people you want to follow up with. I threw in some tips here just to kind of break up the workshop a little bit. So, what I really want to do next is talk about Joe. So the tip you just got. Joe is someone who basically inspired me to do this workshop in so many ways. It's very interesting. So I'll do my little acting story here. So Joe approached the stage and then he turned. In front of him was 100 people, business people, educators, students, grad students, recent graduates, and investors. What Joe did was he got really nervous, didn't practice very much, and his very first slide had, you can imagine, 2 logos on it. We don't know why, but he had 2 logos on it. He proceeded to keep talking. He never explained the 2 logos. His next slide was even worse. It had light green lettering on a white background and 15-point font that he cut and pasted from a report. Then he did the worst thing of all, is he turned his back to the audience and started reading the rest of his presentation. I was at a table, this was during lunch, and the guy next to me turned to me and said, "Eric, I don't get it." That's basically how the whole audience felt. It was 9 painful minutes. Poor Joe. So we'll learn from Joe today. We'll talk about Joe a little more. And again, he was one of the inspirations for me putting this workshop together, because I had just seen one too many technical people who were really brilliant, otherwise give a poor presentation for various reasons. I actually met with him and talked to him a little bit about it, so I'll talk to him about him a little bit more. But that is something to just keep in mind, and we don't want to feel that way when we're giving our presentations as well.
Are you going to talk about facing the screen versus facing the audience? Because sometimes I have a lot of information on my screen, and I can't, it's the first time giving the presentation, I can't always remember. And if you're doing editing up until the last minute,
Sure.
I mean, are you going to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and there's times when I think it is appropriate to read off a slide together with the audience. The tip is make sure you have time to do that together. You don't show up for 10 seconds with a long quote that you want to read from Einstein or something, and it's really important, but you go quickly to the next slide and they're still trying to read it. Or you have too many things. You have an image and a graph and a quote all together. Your eye doesn't know what to do. You don't know where to look. So yeah, and we don't have 5 hours to practice the night before. We have 10 minutes to zip it to the guy and load it up, and then we go. A handout can be a good way to do it too. You might have a bullet points overviewing something, but you might say, okay, on page 5,